The construction of Node.js means that we are trying to answer one very important question, and it is, what does JavaScript need to manage a server? What are the features that we need to have accessible in JavaScript in order to do the kind of things that a web server normally needs to do? For example, JavaScript needs better ways to organize its code into reusable pieces. As a developer, in other programming languages, we have better ways to do this than JavaScript did for a long time. Now the new version of JavaScript, ES10, actually has some better ways to do this, but Node.js was answering this question before that existed. We also need ways to deal with files. If you're a web server, you're likely going to have to work with files, maybe zip files or images or other things along the way. We need ways to deal with databases. You're almost always dealing with the database when it comes to building a web software, and it's the web server that talks to the database. We are a web server, so we need the ability to communicate over the internet. JavaScript by default does not have that. You won't find it in the ECMAScript specification, and coming along for the ride because we are a web server, we need the ability to accept requests and send responses in the standard format that's used in the internet communication. And also, the web server, since it's asked to do jobs, to do work, sometimes the things it's asked to do take a long time. So we want people to be able to continue to access the web server even when it's doing things that are taking a while. So we need a way to deal with work that takes a long time. These are just some of the problems that need to be solved when you're designing a web server, and some of the things that JavaScript simply doesn't have out of the box. And these are the things, among others, that Node.js solves for us. But let's look for a moment at how. The first part of the Node core, the core code that makes up Node.js that we'll take a quick look at, is the C++. The C++ core, the area of Node.js that's about adding the features, about building the base, the foundation of what makes Node.js a web server. Let's take a quick look now for the first time at the Node.js source code. To begin with, we'll go to the GitHub Node.js /Node.js. If you're not familiar with GitHub, you should be. It's an awesome website full of open source utilities and software. In other words, code that you can look at, use, reuse, change for your own purposes, and notice one of those pieces of software that is available to look at and browse in the GitHub website. So Node.js is where Node lives. And there's a number of repositories you can find also in this tab, but we're looking for Node. This is the repository, and if I click it, we'll see that it's full of code. It's full of code, files, and folders. And so you can click around, for example, lib directory. You can also find a lot of sources here. There is also another directory, src. GitHub also provides a way to download the source code in your local computer. So this is exactly what I've done. We're going to take a quick look. Again, you don't have to do this yourself. I just want to show you what's going on behind the scene with Node.js. And there's a side note. You can also go to GitHub/Joyent. This is where the Node repository used to live. Node was created by a guy named Ryan Dahl while working at a company called Joyent. And they are still involved in Node.js and its development. However, Node.js has since become more open source structured so that there is a foundation that's actually working on Node.js itself. But many of the things and utilities that Node.js depends on are still found here in Giant's GitHub website, like libuv, for example, which we'll see later in the course and others. So there is a lot of code out here, both on GitHub /Giant and GitHub /Node.js. Particularly the node repository here, the node repository. And this repository is the one that we are looking to look at. I've downloaded the Node.js source code and I've opened it in Visual Studio Code. We'll take a look at just a few things. There are a few folders and files. Within all of these code, we'll start with deps, DEPS, or dependencies. That's things that were built outside of Node.js but are a part of Node.js. For example, the obvious one, V8, Google's V8 JavaScript engine, that's part of Node.js. These are the things we'll see later, like libuv or UV. This is the libuv. So there are other libraries that are built into Node.js and some are built specifically for Node.js, and these are C++ libraries of code like zlib. For example, this is for creating and using zip files. And then there is a src folder, which is the C++ source code, and there is quite lot of it. And if I go to Node header file, you will notice one of the first lines of code is what we were to inspect when we are embedding the V8. We are using the V8 engine throughout Node.js to process and execute JavaScript code. And of course, there's a lot more going on in C++ program, a great deal, and we'll see some of these things as we go along. So the C++ core is a core of features of utilities built in C++ and made available to JavaScript via the hooks in the V8 engine. So we can see that there's a lot of things that going on here, and won't go through all of these in this course. Most of these things you can find in Node.js source code as far as actual usage, as far as actually what they do, but we can see and understand and get a feel for the fact that there is an awful lot of features that Node.js is adding to JavaScript, making available to JavaScript. The mental model you should have is not that Node.js is JavaScript, but rather than Node.js accepts JavaScript and allows to have more features that we write with it than normal. That's enough for the C++ core of Node.js. Our intent here is not to go deeply into what's happening in the C++ code right away, nor to go through C++ itself as a language to learn. To be able to understand the source code, we want to understand that it exists, and a few times throughout this course, we'll actually come back here in order to have a deeper understanding of what's going on. But let's move on with the course.